Urgent, Erdogan delivers a powerful blow to Putin's oil and gas, spelling apocalypse for Russia. A global turning point, Ankara makes a sharp pivot, and that's not all. A global geopolitical shock, a stab in Putin's back as the US and China unite against Russia. A devastating blow to the Kremlin, but more on all this coming up. Watch until the end. Ukraine Today, Renata Aslanova here, bringing you the latest events. A sensation, Erdogan delivers a powerful blow to Russian oil. The country's largest refineries are massively switching to non-Russian oil after tough sanctions from the US, EU, and UK against the Kremlin's energy sector. Turkey is now trying to diversify its supplies to avoid the risks associated with trading with Russia, which is financing its war against Ukraine. According to Reuters, one of the country's largest oil refineries, Star, owned by an Azerbaijani company, recently made purchases worth $4.5 billion. Shipments of crude oil from Iraq, Kazakhstan, and other producers. Another giant is also increasing its purchases of non-Russian oil, including Iraqi oil. Sources report that the company is ready to completely abandon Russian crude at one of its plants in order to maintain fuel exports to the EU without violating sanctions. This year, the company has already expanded its supply geography by purchasing its first batch of oil from Brazil and expecting another from Angola. From January to October, Turkey imported about 669,000 barrels of crude oil per day, of which 47% came from Russia. For comparison, last year this figure was 580,000 barrels per day, and the share of Russian oil was even higher, 333,000 barrels per day. And that's not all. Even the state-owned company has come under fire about Ankara's sharp turnaround. Western media were shocked. Russia may lose its last major European gas market in Turkey. Thus, Ankara may be able to meet more than half of its gas needs by the end of 2028 by ramping up production and increasing imports from the US. According to calculations by Western analysts, this will strengthen Turkey's energy security and support its ambition to become a regional gas hub. It is noted that Ankara plans to re-export liquefied natural gas and domestically produced gas to Europe. At the same time, Turkey is actively developing alternative supply routes and expanding the capacity of its terminals to receive LNG from the US and Algeria. Meanwhile, Russia's share of the market has dropped from 60% to 37% in recent years. Researchers note that these developments will strengthen Ankara's position and deal a blow to Gazprom.
Currently, Turkey has several options: its own production, pipeline gas from Azerbaijan, and an increasing number of LNG terminals. As a result, the country is no longer dependent on Russian gas. This situation gives Turkey a strong negotiating position, allowing it to push for lower prices on Russian gas, since Russia has no alternative markets for these volumes.
It is also assumed that, economically, Turkey's move will lead to a reduction in some of Russia's state revenues from the gas sector.
As Turkey's own production grows, it will likely want to replace Russian gas in the pipeline going to the Balkans, which would be another blow to Gazprom and weaken Russia's political influence in the region.
A global sensation. There will be no peace without Turkey. Erdogan wants to bring Putin and Trump together. Turkey is once again at the center of the global geopolitical game. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced that Ankara is ready to host a historic meeting between the presidents of Russia and the United States as soon as tomorrow. While Europe is losing the initiative, Erdogan is staying ahead of the game, hinting that Budapest has failed in its attempt. And Istanbul is ready at any moment to write its name into history.
We are ready to host such a meeting at any time. It's a pity that the meeting in Budapest did not take place. We believe that any dialogue is useful for ending this war.
Analysts are buzzing. Erdogan is not just offering a platform, he is demanding recognition that peace is impossible without Turkey. Is this the meeting of the century, or a political spectacle with the highest stakes? One thing is clear, Erdogan has once again made the whole world talk about Turkey. Trump is betting on Erdogan. It is the Turkish leader who could put an end to the war and rein in Putin. Is Erdogan ready to play big and change the course of history? Sensational details. Coming up.
Trump named the president who, in his opinion, could help to resolve Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine.
Putin respects him, and he is my friend.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan is actively involved in peace efforts to end Russia's war against Ukraine. He positions his country as a reliable mediator, The first negotiations after the start of the full-scale war took place in Istanbul in the spring of 2022. Several rounds of talks between representatives of the Kremlin and Ukraine also took place in Turkey in the summer of 2025.
Turkey has always advocated a diplomatic path to achieve this goal. Now, after 3 years of immense suffering, an opportunity has finally arisen.
We hope that the negotiations in Istanbul will open a new chapter. Turkish mediation was also crucial in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the Grain Corridor, which was vital for global food security. The Turkish company Baykar continues to integrate Ukrainian-made engines into its combat drones. Ukrainian engineers are undergoing internships at the Baykar plant in Istanbul, and in the future they will form a team to work at the facility in Ukraine, which during its construction is constantly under attack from Russia.
Iron concrete and buildings can be restored. What truly matters is our will and our faith in this project. No missile can damage our friendship.
Turkey's assistance to Ukraine is not limited to Bayraktars and mediation.
We have demonstrated our solidarity with Ukraine in practice by providing concrete assistance in political, economic, humanitarian, and technical spheres.
Turkey closed the straits in the Black Sea to Russian warships, which significantly limited the aggressor's capabilities in the southern direction, and provided Ukraine with missiles with a range of 20 to 70 kilometers for destroying ground-based moving and stationary targets.
For 500 days, the Ukrainian people have been defending the territorial integrity of their country.
The year 2025 changed a lot in Ankara's relations with Moscow. The Kremlin feels the distancing of its old partner, realizing that Putin has fewer and fewer allies. And here comes another blow from Erdogan. By the end of 2028, Turkey plans to meet more than half of its natural gas needs through domestic production and imports from the United States. The Kremlin understands that for them this means a loss of revenue and a reduction in supplies from Russia to the European market. It exists, but is it really needed? But it's not just about gas. Turkey has implemented a decision to build 3 different types of warships, which will take the country's navy another step forward. Turkey plans to develop one of the aircraft carriers together with Spain. In terms of size, it matches American nuclear aircraft carriers. In the summer of 25, Turkey joined the Druon coalition, which is led by Latvia and the United Kingdom. Currently, the coalition already includes 20 countries providing military assistance to Ukraine in this area. In 2025, the coalition members pledged to allocate €2.075 billion in support of Ukraine and have already contributed €180 million to the Joint Procurement Fund.
Just as we declared our rejection of the war 3 years ago when the conflict began, today, we are fully determined to make every effort to end the war through negotiations. In doing so, we continue our steadfast support for Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence.
Turkey has declared its readiness to participate in the reconstruction of Ukraine. Projects are planned in super energy, energy efficiency, social housing, and water supply.
Turkey is interested in ensuring that Ukraine controls the northern coast of the Black Sea and that Russia does not appear there. In addition, Turkey is interested in the reconstruction of Ukraine. It is a huge market. In addition, Turkey sees an opportunity to intensify the development of its military technical industry, considering that it can receive additional resources from selling its weapons. All of this together creates a solid foundation for being interested in this process.
Turkey, as a NATO country, was ready to send its troops to Ukraine to guarantee the implementation of peace agreements. Naturally, this initiative was condemned in the Kremlin. Officially, Ankara supports Ukraine's territorial integrity but tries to maintain a balance between the parties. Turkey is still trying to avoid joining Western sanctions, which, in its view, allows it to remain an effective channel of communication with the Kremlin. And Ukraine?
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. A stab in Putin's back. The US and China have struck at Russia. Trump and Xi Jinping have staged a geopolitical upheaval. After a 6-year pause, the US and China have joined forces and thrown Putin overboard from world politics. Trump lowered tariffs, called Xi a great leader, and declared, "We will work together on Ukraine." Watch the explosive details right now.
Donald Trump met with Xi Jinping in South Korea as part of his tour of the Indo-Pacific region. The main topics of the meeting were trade barriers between the countries and, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war.
They agreed to develop a more forward-looking joint agenda for political dialogue, which is, in principle, a very positive outcome of this meeting.
As a result of the meeting, the parties agreed to reduce the tariff on Chinese goods related to fentanyl, a synthetic opioid analgesic, from 20% to 10%. The overall level of U.S. tariffs will reach up to 47%.
The fundamental issues underlying the conflict between the US and China have not gone anywhere. And these very important issues, such as the fate of the island of Taiwan and the possibility of imposing tariffs on Chinese goods specifically because of the purchase of Russian oil, well, Trump put it diplomatically, saying these issues were not raised. But in such cases, as a rule, when no agreement is reached, you say that we didn't talk about it.
The agreements regarding Ukraine were less productive. Despite the fact that, according to the US president, Ukraine was discussed at length, initially Trump wanted to persuade Xi to reduce support for Russia so that Putin would agree to end the war. Whether the parties reached any agreement in this regard was not announced.
A strategic dialogue of cooperation has been established between authoritarian Russia and authoritarian Beijing. And in order to take such a significant risk, Xi, in exchange for this, must in return receive something more substantial and significant, something that would correspond to the high level of relations between America and Beijing. Given that for now, the relationship can be seen as more closely resembling the logic of de-escalatory actions in the trade and economic sphere at this stage, I wouldn't say that a strategic alliance or dialogue has been established between Washington and Beijing.
Donald Trump rated the meeting a 12 out of 10. By the way, this was the first meeting between the leaders of the US and China in the past 6 years.
Based on the statements we've seen, that there won't be tariffs on Chinese goods and that American agricultural products will have access, it seems like a good announcement. But as for how true that really is, again, considering President Trump's track record, let's just remember Trump's statement that peace had been achieved in the Middle East after 3,000 years. I'm someone who reads news from the Middle East, and what's happening there doesn't even come close to resembling peace in that region. So Trump's statement about everything being settled with China, everything being great, well, let's at least wait 48 hours and then see what happens.
Trump said that he had reached an agreement with Chinese President Xi Jinping about making an official visit to China, which is planned to take place in the spring of next year. He explained that this visit would be an important opportunity to discuss key issues and strengthen the relationship between the two countries. Following this trip, there will be a return visit by the Chinese leader to the United States, further promoting dialogue and cooperation between the United States and China.